All right. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. If you haven't joined me before, my name is Sarah Brudd, and I work for UGA Extension in DeKalb County. What Extension does is we educate the community on various different things. I do ag and natural resources, and we also do our family consumer science department, and they do things like diabetes education, cancer cooking. They also work closely with our Fresh on Deck program, which you can always learn more about that in our website. And, so I'm going to talk tonight about low maintenance gardening. So this is a good topic for those that go out of town a lot, or they just, don't have the time or don't have the energy anymore to do a whole lot of in the dirt type gardening. So I'm going to go over various different things that don't take as much time and energy and things like that. So if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to ask me. I don't mind being asked a question. You can type it in the chat box. You can unmute yourself, whichever you feel like doing. So, all right. So just because you are short on time, or again, don't have the energy or anything to do a lot of gardening anymore, doesn't mean that you can't have a nice thriving landscape or garden. We're going to go over relatively easy plants to care for, ones that don't take a long time to harvest. So that would be some things you can grow and eat, and ways to enhance what you already have in the garden. So all right, so we're going to go over some perennials, annuals, bulbs, vegetables, herbs, fruits, and succulents. So I try to cover like a large range. For example, right here, this is a camellia. I didn't include shrubs and trees and things like that in the landscape, but if you want color in your landscape, if you have a partly shady area, camellias are great to add. They do really well. They don't need a lot of fertilizer. They don't need a lot of pruning. And then they're thriving right now. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, my family is being very polite. So again, camellias, they're great in the garden. They're thriving right now. Mine are still blooming. They made it through all the freezes we had. There, you can also get the Sasanqua kind that will bloom in late fall and early December. All right, next slide. So perennials. A lot of times when most people think perennials, they think maintenance. There are some that are relatively low maintenance. And so, however, when you are going to plant perennials, you do need to prepare the soil. So if we have that nice clay soil here. So almost anything you plant, you need to add some amendments. And it doesn't mean you need to get a big tiller or anything. You just need to, take a shovel, dig some of it out, and add in some compost or things like that. All right, so need to add in some compost, fertilize with like 10-10-10, and you're good to go. So some of the best perennials to do in a low maintenance garden, some foliage ones would be ferns, heuchera, hostas. These all love shade. Some hostas, however, will do well in sun. You don't need to amend the soil for the ferns and the heucheras. They do really well. I actually have one here. This is one of my favorite plants. I ordered this from a catalog. It's the pumpkin spice. I love heucheras. I have a fountain and I plant them all around my fountain, and they do really well. They like it shady. So I know a lot of us have very shady landscapes, especially if you've been in your house for a while and you've had trees that have been growing for a long time. So heuchera is definitely one of my favorite. They're also called coral bells. If you run across something called coral bells, that would be these. So, but you can see in the middle picture, those are the heucheras. They come in many different colors. They keep their color. They I never have to trim them back. They kind of look a little puny in the winter, but then they come right back. Ferns on the left, there's many different types of ferns. Some of favorites I know is cinnamon stick, because it sends out these little sticks that look like cinnamon. Painted fern, Japanese painted fern, because it has like silvery foliage. Lots of different kinds. Again, on the right, there's hostas. So you can see they do come in different sizes and colors and things. So. All right, some perennials that are relatively easy that have blooms. You can do yarrow, which is in the bottom in the middle. You don't need to fertilize. You may need to cut back to the ground in the winter, but that's about it. And then on the left of that one, we have coneflowers. It's a native. It grows really well here. If you want, you can fertilize it in the spring, but they do really well. They also come in red and other different colors. Those might be a little more tender, I guess you can say, like might need a little bit more care, but the purple coneflowers are the native ones that do really well. And then on the right, we have the daylilies. You'll see these all over shopping center aisles. They plant them on hillsides, DOT does, because somebody asked me a question, because they're pretty low maintenance. What is the green one on the top right? I haven't gone over that one yet. So that is called Autumn Joy Sedum. And somebody gave this to me. They just like dug it out. This isn't my landscape, that picture, but somebody just dug me up some out of their yard, and I just kind of planted it in clay soil, and it is a beautiful plant. It's kind of like a succulent, but it's called Autumn Joy Sedum. It does have some blooms that come out, and I never do anything to it. I never cut it down. I never do anything, and it does really well. So with these, if you could, again, maybe add some compost before you put them right in direct clay, but a lot of them do fine. Again, like I said, the daylilies, they plant these on the side of hillsides just because they don't have to do anything with them. Maybe fertilize once a year or so, and you're good to go. So I like all of these perennials for pretty low maintenance. All right, annuals. They always add a pop of color to your landscape. I'm a big fan of annuals. You can add them in containers or in beds. If you want them in a container, obviously just add some potting soil and maybe some slow release fertilizer. Osmocote, I know, makes a lot of slow release fertilizers. Some are very low maintenance. They'll take full sun, they'll take clay soil. They don't need to be watered as much, so they're a little more drought tolerant. So what I have up here, right to the right of the S and the word annuals, that is Dusty Miller. It's a really good foliage plant. It has this like silvery foliage to it. I always use it in my containers as kind of like a filler type plant. And it's supposedly an annual, but it will go into the fall season, and I'll usually buy it once per year, whether I buy it when I'm doing my winter annuals or I'm doing my spring, and it will last through the following seasons. So it does really well, grows a long time. To the right of that is Vinca. Very drought tolerant, takes clay soil. It's nice in beds, like the landscape beds, because it grows big and it kind of gets wide. So it's a nice kind of, I have it under in my Japanese maple to kind of, so it's not so much just random space there, and it fills in and adds some color to it. Then on the bottom left, that is Homestead Purple Verbena. Some consider it a perennial, but to me it's more of an annual, and it spreads. It has these nice purple blooms, and it does really well here. And then in the middle is zinnias. They come in all different shapes and sizes. You literally can just throw the seeds out there and they will pop up. They're a great pollinator plant. So a lot of people put them in the middle of a vegetable bed to attract pollinators to pollinate their plants. And, I have some. I'm going to do mine in container. So I bought these the other week. They're actually a shorter type, but you can see they have a butterfly on them because they attract pollinators. This is supposedly an heirloom kind called Thumbelina. Very cheap. You can get a pack of seeds for like $1 of zinnias, and very pretty. Now, the plant on the bottom right called Gomphrena. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Water occasionally. I've planted this almost every year. It has this like whimsical look to it. I really like it. It does really well. It also comes in white, but it has these kind of like gumball looking flowers to them, and it gets pretty tall. And I rarely water it. It mostly just gets the rainfall. Same goes with the zinnias and the vinca and the homestead purple verbena. All of those, water occasionally, maybe more at the beginning when you plant them, and then you're good to go. So, all right. Another thing, bulbs. If you have to take your time to plant them, but you rarely need to fertilize them. After they die, you would need to cut them back, but the most classic ones would be the daffodils, the grape hyacinths. I like these. I think they're, they come in white also. I think they might come in another different color, but usually you see this like purpley blue color. They're shorter to the ground. Then you have the crocus in the bottom right, and then this snowdrops in the bottom left. My neighbor has the snowdrops, and hers have gotten taller and have spread throughout the years. And so they're one of the very first things to come up. That's why they call them snowdrops. A lot of times they'll come up in snow. So if you want something in the very beginning, like your first, spring's coming, you can plant snowdrops. And they don't, I wouldn't say they're invasive, but they can spread a little bit. So one of my favorite annuals, and all you need to do is just cut them back after they all die down, and you're good to go. Or bulbs, not annuals. Okay, vegetables. There are some vegetables that aren't going to take up all of your time. They do need to be watered, a lot of them. There's some that don't take a long time to harvest. So let's say you have some vegetables growing, you're going to go on like a 3-week vacation in the summer because it's summertime. So who's going to take care of your vegetables? Then maybe you need to plant the ones that don't take a long time to harvest. So some of those would be your beans, your green beans, plant easily from seed. Radishes only take about 25 to 35 days until they're ready to harvest. So they're good. We like to do these with kids a lot because it doesn't take like 3 months to see after they've planted. So I always recommend radishes. Maybe fertilize one time and they're good to go. So these are the bush beans, of course, because if you use the pole beans, you're going to have to get a whole trellising system. So these beans and these radishes would even grow well in containers if you didn't want to plant them in like the ground or a raised bed or anything. Now, tomatoes, a little more intensive, but if you get the determinate tomatoes, they'll produce all at the same time. So if you really want tomatoes, but you're going to go out of town for a long time, get the determinate kinds. So that would be like your Early Girl, Celebrities, Rutgers, your Roma tomatoes, if you like to make sauce. They do need to be watered, obviously. They need to be fertilized, but you can grow them in a container. So you just put your potting soil in, and you don't have to amend any soil if you want to do a container. And then once they start producing, they'll produce all at one time, and then they'll be done for the summer. So that's why you can grow vegetables that are a little more low maintenance than others. Same goes with peppers, not bell peppers, but the hot peppers. They grow well in a container. They're very heat and drought tolerant. So if you don't want to sit out there in the heat and water them every day, you can. They do need to be harvested more often. So if you don't mind picking them once they're ready, but they don't have to have they don't have to be watered every day, and they can grow well in a container. So All right, herbs. One of my favorites, they come back every year, can be once they're done in the fall, you can cut them back and dry them so you can use them inside. Rarely, if ever, fertilized. If you somehow think they need to look a little bit better, you can throw some 888 fertilizer in there. But I don't know if I've ever fertilized my herbs and they're still growing well. They grow well in containers. I said use palm, also cactus soil with potting soil mixed in so it drains really well. Basil you can plant right in potting soil. I would avoid cilantro, sometimes lavender and dill. They will grow here, but our humid climate makes them not as great. I don't know. Some of y'all might have had great luck with it. My dill already, I just planted it, already is looking kind of, but it's just that feathery look to dill and cilantro and lavender. We have a very humid climate. Again, most of our herbs come from the Mediterranean where it's very dry and rocky there, and we have a very humid climate here. So. Fruits. Fruits have some different soil requirements. Like blueberries, they like very acidic soil. However, once you plant them, you'll reap the benefits for years. Again, blueberries need acidic soil. They like to be fertilized every year. That's it. Once they grow on shrubs, the shrubs will get very large. They have great fall color, so they can also be used as a landscape plant. And as long as you can, pick them, eat them off the shrub, whatever you want to do. But as far as fruits go, blueberries and figs are the easiest ones to grow. They don't take a lot of time. Figs, you might want to prune them the first few years, whether you want them to grow like a tree, a shrub, or you can even espalier them as when they grow them like flat against the wall. But after that, they rarely ever, like most fruit trees need to be sprayed, they need to be pruned, they need, insecticides, all this kind of stuff. And figs are just one that doesn't really need that. Same goes with blueberries. They're a shrub, so you don't have to train them on a trellis or anything, and they're pretty easy to take care of. As long as you can keep the birds off of them, that's the only problem with blueberries, if you have a lot of birds around. Here are some specialty plants. Succulents don't need much water. They do need full sun. You can plant them in the cacti soil that you can find at the garden centers. You do want to bring them in during the winter. So if you just are like, I don't want to water, I don't want to take time. I mean, you might need to once in a while, but very rarely. So succulents, they're very popular right now. The stuff that's green that's growing all around them, that's more of like a sedum, but it's a type of succulent. Air plants, no soil, just a container, need bright indirect light. So usually with these, you would just mist once a week or dunk in water and let dry. So you can just like dunk them in some water, set them on a paper towel, let them dry, and then put them back in their container. So very easy if you want something that really takes no time. Air plants is a good option. And you can find these at garden centers now because they've become popular over the years. So let's see. All right, these are some things you want to avoid if you don't want to do a lot of maintenance. Fruit trees, like I said, they need to be pruned, they need to be sprayed a lot, they need special fertilizer, you got to do all your soil testing, you got to make sure they're in the perfect conditions. Fruit trees are very time intensive. Most vegetables are the same: water, fertilizing, insect control. They might start showing diseases, and then you got to clear out that soil, rotate the crops. It's just, it's time intensive. A lot of people are into vegetable gardening now, especially because everything has gone up in price. So, but if you are short on time, I wouldn't recommend growing a large vegetable garden. I would say winter is not as time intensive. It's mostly just leafy stuff that you grow, so they don't need as much, and you don't have to deal with the insects. Lawns. Everybody wants a nice lush lawn, but every type of grass has a whole maintenance calendar, and there's something to do every month for every type of grass. So mowing, fertilizing, preparing, putting out your pre-emergence so the weeds won't grow, spraying for weeds that did grow, you need to aerate, you need to top dress. I mean, there's so much stuff when it comes to lawns. My husband does our lawn, and he spends probably a few hours every weekend, and that's just right now because it's not in prime growing season. When it comes to the summer, it's like all the time, applying something, doing something, all that stuff. Annuals and perennials. Some annuals and perennials need constant attention and lots of water. Petunias, you basically have to deadhead those almost every day or every couple of days. I love petunias. They're my favorite, one of my favorites. But you do need to pick off the dead ones a lot. They don't like a lot of intense sun, so they need to be watered a lot. And when they're in containers, they need to be watered almost every day. Perennials, most of them need to be cut back, thinned out, divided, replanted, soil amended, fertilized, all of those type of things. So that's why I gave you recommendations of you can have all these, but there are some that are just less, they're a little more low maintenance than others. So, all right, I wanted to share these things with you. So when I talked about vegetables, I get most of these from this vegetable planting chart. And this is when you can plant from seeds, and it talks about the days to maturity. So as you can see down here, radishes is on the other side. You can flip it over and see it. But so some days that don't take as much, like mustards might only take 40 days until you're ready to harvest it. If you don't have time this year, but you're going to be around next year, asparagus would be a good thing because it takes the second year until it grows. So I can send you all this vegetable planting chart if you are interested in vegetables. This Good Bug, Bad Bug book, one of my all-time favorite books. If you see insects around your garden and you don't know what it is and it's eating everything, most likely it might be in this book. I like this book because it shows the damage of the bug, not necessarily, because a lot of people see the damage, they don't necessarily see the insect. So this shows you the life cycle, what it looks like when it's first, when it's the larva stage of some of them, the baby stage, the adult stage. It gives you different controls for them, organic controls, different things about all of them. So this is one of my all-time very favorite books. It's not from UGA or anything. It's something that I picked up myself. All right. Those are just some resources. And that's it. It's a relatively short presentation because we live in Georgia and it's humid and most things need it. It's the vegetable planting chart on the Extension website. I'm not sure it is. If you go to this website, let me type it in. Well, I don't know. Just Google UGA Extension publications. And if you type in the vegetable planting chart, then you can find it. Let me see if I can escape this and go to where it would be. And then I can copy and paste that into the browser for everyone. New share. Okay, I'm gonna share this with you all. So this website right here is our Extension publication page. And what it has, it's called extension.uga. I don't know. What you can do is you can search for anything in here and it will pull it up. So let's say you want blueberries. Now I will say if you're searching for this and you want to grow blueberries at home, put blueberries and then homeowner. Because if you just put in blueberries, it's going to give you, if you're a row crop farmer and you're growing blueberries. And then it will pull up home garden blueberries. And you can find anything you want to know about blueberries in that. I'm going to do vegetable planting chart. Okay, there's more than one. It's on here somewhere. Well, that was kind of a bust. I gotta find it. So what is it called? Seed chart. Y'all, this is kind of, here we go. It's inside a publication. It pulls it up. They've updated the graphics on it. But like I said, can y'all see that? Radishes, 25 to 30 days. These things, it says right here, these are the best cultivars that grow in Georgia. Days to maturity, it gives you the planting dates. So like English peas, you can only grow in January. However, bell peppers, you could plant April 1st and then you could plant them again in July. So you can get 2 seasons out of a lot of these. So this is a vegetable planting chart. I will put this link in the chat box if you're interested in it. If you want to go to that and save that to your computer and you can print it out. Is there any other questions you all have? I usually open it up now to just questions and things like that. Next week, I'm doing a kitchen gardening class that's going to go over your staples in your garden, which would be vegetables, fruits, herbs, and growing those. Any questions you all have? No. Oh, can you share any tips on things to plant together to ward off insects, or can I find that on this site as well? I know a lot of people recommend marigolds, and there's really no research behind that to say that they deter insects. There are also a lot of things that say they repel mosquitoes. There's really not a lot of research behind that. Our mosquito specialist said unless you, the lemongrass or eucalyptus or anything, unless you like crush it up and rub it on your skin, it's not necessarily going to get rid of mosquitoes. I've said this before, a good old fashioned fan outside is one of the best way to repel mosquitoes because they can't fly against it. As far as insects, if you're growing a lot of fruit or vegetables or whatever, there is a method where you can plant, and you have to have a larger space to do this, but you could even do it in a raised bed. They do these things called trap crops. So basically, if you had like a square thing of planting, and then you did these crops around the border, and the insects attack those first. So hopefully, you know, attack them enough so you can get a harvest out of the stuff you really want. It's called trap cropping. You can look it up. It's usually on a larger scale, but I've seen community gardens do it on a smaller scale. You know, they might have something growing around the outside, whether that be sunflowers or something with, you know, I think, you know, like a lot of soybean farmers had an issue with the kudzu bug. So they might plant something that they don't care about on the outside. So then they can harvest their soybeans, if that makes sense. So. Any other questions to me? I know Donna, that's the only thing I really know of, but some people swear by marigolds to deter insects. They think like the smell kind of deters them, but just depends. Anybody? You can just unmute yourself if you would like to. No?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have tried so many times to grow squash and the yellow squash and at no luck. So I heard you mention pollinators.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I missed it because I came in late. But did you say I could just put a plant in the middle of my garden? Because I'm just doing one on the on my deck. So if I put a plant that's a pollinator plant, would that help?
Well, it depends on why your your yellow squash wasn't growing. Did you have flowers but just no fruit?
Right, flowers and no fruit.
That's usually a pollination problem. So yeah, what I would recommend is a pollinator plant. And I again, I showed these zinnias. These are shorter ones. They're the Thumbelina kind, but they definitely attract pollinators. Any of your annuals usually do too. So if you just wanted to put some nice colorful annuals up there, they attract pollinators also. So see if that works. If you still are not getting pollination, you can always hand pollinate your plants just to make sure. And what you do is you take like a fine little toothbrush and like dip it in one flower and go to the next and just keep doing that. So they will, be pollinated.
And what was the name of the seeds that you just showed
These are
me?
called zinnias.
Okay. Okay.
This is the Thumbelina kind, so they're a little shorter. They're only like a foot tall instead of these like 3-4 foot tall ones that might flop over if they're in a pot.
Okay. Okay.
Somebody said, any suggestions for native plants, especially those for ground cover and shade? I'm not sure about native ground covers. Some of my favorite ground covers would be Ajuga. I love that. There's also it's called raspberry something or another. There's of course Pachysandra, Ajuga. There's something called raspberry something or another that I like. It's kind of reddish color. I don't know about them. I don't really necessarily know creeping raspberry. It's from Taiwan though, it's not native. Native ground covers. Yeah, not any that I would plant. But we have a list on that publication website. If you go to Landscape Plants for Georgia, then they list all the ground covers that grow well here. So if you are interested in that, Landscape Plants for Georgia. Also, I always recommend gold medal plants because those have been trialed at UGA and they select the winners every year. They haven't done it for quite some time now, but they try them there, they grow well. Those are called Georgia gold medal plants. Any other questions for you all? All right, if not, then I hope you'll join me next week if you're interested in growing some vegetables. and some fruits and some herbs. Just the main, most popular ones that are kind of staples, which would be tomatoes and squash and beans and things like that. Strawberries, we'll go over those, everything. So I hope you all have a good evening. Hope you might have learned something. So
I have, Sarah, I have one question.
okay.
It's more soil related. What's a good way to enhance your soil? Is there any kind of inoculant that can get rid of all those little bad creatures growing in the soil? Is it
Well,
based on amendments or
I
pouring
mean,
some compost tea out there? What helps the good bacteria?
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lot of bacteria in our soil.
Mhm.
You know, are you trying to get rid of insects or?
Yeah, or
I mean, you want to have some insects. You know, if you're worried about like white grubs, which would turn into Japanese beetles, you can always apply
Mhm.
something called BT, which gets rid of like caterpillar type larvae. That's something
Mhm.
you can do. You know, but to me, they're all part of that soil chemistry. So I don't really like to apply a lot of chemicals to my soil just because, you know, they kind of make up what soil is. But I definitely don't think compost tea or anything would do it. Now, if you're going to add some compost or some manure or whatever and just enrich your soil, then you should
Mhm.
be okay.
Okay, so enriching the soil would be,
Yeah.
because when I plant potatoes, it's like it's overwintering in the soil and it just eats at my potatoes, and I try to rotate things around.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
they're definitely, you know, because we're not getting such as harsh winters anymore. A lot of things will um, overwinter in the soil and remain. I know a lot of gardens that have a squash bug and squash vine borer issue because they just keep overwintering. So, you know, once in a while, you might want to try to clear some of that soil out and start with some fresh stuff if you can.
mhm.
Kind of hard. So, but if you wanted to, you could spray an insecticide well before you're ready to plant. You could get rid of them all. So, um,
Mm.
depending on what you think you have, there are some that are, you know, very specific, like the larva, the BT, and then there's some that are, you know, kill everything type ones. So,
Mm. I don't want to get rid of anything good in the soil, but
yeah. So, but if you do it well before you're ready to plant, then it should be out of the soil by the time you can. And I mean, it is an insecticide, it's not going to affect your plants, but
okay.
so,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? None. I'm gonna log off and hopefully see you all next week. And I think we've already loaded some of our May classes on the website if you want to go ahead and sign up for those. So, and if any of y'all are interested in Master Gardener, we are holding info sessions in May, and you can sign up for those under the Master Gardener tab on our website too. So,
What's the website address? Is that the one for the CAB?
it's like, hold on. It has a very long website name. You would be better just typing in UGA extension DeKalb because the website is like UGA extension, county offices, like all this stuff. So just type in UGA extension DeKalb County and you can go to our website that way.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, everybody. Have a